Hi there. Today we are going to see how to download Cloudera virtual machine and load it into the Virtualbox, which can be downloaded from virtualbox.org. So using Virtualbox, you can load any of the operating systems like Cloudera, Hortonworks, Linux, any version of Linux, and you can run this Virtualbox virtually on your Windows or Mac. So let's get started. So here I am on the Cloudera website. So you can go to www.cloudera.com, go to the downloads, and here you can see there's something called Quick Start VMs, right? So just click on the Learn More button. So by default, it's going to redirect to CDH 5.1 or the latest version, whichever it is. So if you are going to download 5.1, so you have to be aware that the minimum requirement to run CDH or Cloudera is 5.1 is basically 8 GB RAM or 80 GB hard disk. So I suggest that you select CDH 4.7, which requires at least 2 GB of RAM, but the requirement is not as huge as the CDH 5.1, right? So here we are at the page of CDH 4.7x, and we have different images for VMware, KVM, and VirtualBox. So today I'm going to show you how to install this using VirtualBox, and because I have VirtualBox which is installed on my machine on my Windows, I'm going to download the virtualbox.7z, the third button. So click on that, download this one. So this is going to take some time as this file is around 2.5 gigabytes. Or if you already have a VMware, you can go ahead and download the first one, the vmware.7z, right? So I have already downloaded and extracted this. Let me start my VirtualBox. Here I'm going to say new, and I'm going to give it a name, Cloudera 4.7. So just remember that Cloudera, it runs on CentOS. So CentOS is a community edition of the Red Hat Enterprise Linux. So you can select Linux, and here you can say Red Hat 64-bit. So just remember that your base machine should support 64-bit. So if you are trying to execute this on a 32-bit machine, Windows or Mac, you might not see the 64-bit option, right? So before downloading the VirtualBox or the Cloudera Quick Start VM, just make sure that your system supports 64-bit, right, operating system. And click next. And the next slide, here it says something called memory size. Just increase the memory size to whatever you can afford, but the minimum requirement is 2 gigs. But here I have a base memory of 8 gigabytes, so I can afford to give it at least like 3 gigabytes of memory to the virtual machine. But if you have very less memory, let's say 4 GB in total, I suggest you go ahead and upgrade your RAM to a higher, like 8 GB or 16 GB, so that you can easily execute one or multiple virtual machines, right? So click next, and here on the hard drive page you can see basically the three options: do not add a virtual hard disk, create a virtual hard disk now, and use an existing virtual hard disk file. So we are going to see the second part probably in the next video. But today we are going ahead with the third option, use an existing VirtualBox, a virtual hard drive file, because we have downloaded that file and that is readily available, right? So let me choose this one and I'm going to say create. So it has already created a file and it says that's in powered off state, right? So let's go ahead and make some changes to the settings. So first make sure that you highlight the newly created VirtualBox, then click on the settings. So in the settings, make sure that your shared clipboard is set to bidirectional so that you can drag and drop files from your Windows or Mac to the Cloudera VM or vice versa. So just make sure, just remove unnecessary things like floppy, etc., which are not really required. So if you have multiple CPUs, you can also increase the number of CPUs you can give. And acceleration, make sure that these two options are set: enable VTX AMDV and enable nested paging. So these others are like standard options which you don't require to change. Right, so that's it. Click OK and then select start. So this is going to take some time. Just select it and click OK. So one more thing is, most people will not be able to set the acceleration because the virtualization in their BIOS will not be switched on automatically. So I suggest those people to reboot your system, go back to the BIOS settings and go to the advanced options and enable the virtualization, right? So without virtualization, you'll not be able to load and run any virtual machines on your Windows. So as I said, depending on the RAM you have assigned to this VirtualBox and the number of processors you have assigned, the load time is going to vary. So let's give it some more time. So here you can see it's booting up CentOS 6.2, which is the latest version of CentOS. Okay, it's almost done. So it looks like I've just given one CPU to this particular VM. I could have given either two or three to just speed up the loading time. So here it's starting up the browser and all the different Cloudera services. So the first time you load Cloudera, it's going to give an update saying that the guest additions are available. So you can go ahead and install the guest additions. Right. So here is the first screen of the Cloudera virtual machine, and you can see two buttons called Hue and Cloudera Manager. So Cloudera Manager is going to take you to various services of Cloudera that are shipped with this particular version, right? And by default, you can log into Cloudera Manager using username and password as Cloudera. I hope you enjoyed my video today. Thank you.